So I wanted to talk a bit about product design, so why it can go off track and what you can do about it if you think that's in danger of happening in your organisation. I've noticed that product design as a term is cropping up more and more recently in the context of digital. So I wanted to, at the start, just actually try and pin it down and understand a bit more about exactly what it is. Okay, so I just Googled a definition. They're all very much the same. Two key things here really. The first one is it's about creating products that solve problems or address needs. Right, fairly straightforward, and it's a process. So there's some sort of method to it. So you go through a series of steps that hopefully you should be able to repeat. And the rest of the definition effectively just unpacks that process. So it's about starting with the problem, deciding if it's worth solving the problem. So in a business sense, that'd be, is it going to make money or is it going to save money? Solving the problem, if there is a problem, and then checking you've solved it. So hopefully fairly straightforward. Now, to me, those steps are quite familiar, and they don't just apply to product design. So from a terminology point of view, there were a few questions earlier about users, customers, all that. There's quite a lot of overlap in this space. So I'd also associate those points with some other disciplines like user-centered design, UX design, design thinking. So to me, they're just kind of labels that are all effectively the same thing, really. So clear that up at the start. So if that's what product design is, going through a series of steps, how can you cock that up? How can that go wrong? I'll run through a quick example. Some people might agree with this or not, depending on your lifestyle choices. This is a smart fridge. It's not just any smart fridge. So this is the RF9000 Family Hub French-style fridge freezer with beverage centre. This is by Samsung. And this is available for, what, close to £3,000, so quite a lot of money. What do you get for that? What you get for that is quite a decent looking fridge freezer with a screen built into one of the doors that you can access the internet on. So if people are wondering why you might need to do that, which is fair, they do give you some ideas on the website about what you can use this for. So you can keep in touch with all the family. So as they're doing here, so there's a lad writing his mum a message if we just zoom in. So quite a sweet message. Probably worth pointing out that, I mean, his mother is stood directly behind him at this point. Maybe could have just said that out loud, but it does more than that. So the fridge comes fitted with built-in cameras, so cameras inside it. So if you've had a tough day and you don't fancy opening your own fridge door, you can tap and swipe down, and the screen will show you a live video feed of what's going on the other side of that door. There is more to it than that. If the features don't end there, you can watch whilst you cook, as this lady's doing here. Quite a lot going on in this picture if we break it down. So she's just finished chopping a red onion using quite a sharp knife. She's about half a glass of wine down, continuing to chop, but now turning to look at something on the screen. So if you think about that definition at the start, so it's about starting with problems and needs and users. I'm not quite sure that this is actually solving a problem. I'm not quite sure this woman actually needs this fridge in her and her family's life. So how have we got here? So how have we got to this point? So in an ideal world, you start with your users, you figure out who they are, what their problems are, what their needs are, and you use that as the basis for creating designs. Fairly straightforward. I think what's happened here, and what we notice quite a lot, is this part of the process, so this starting with users, shrinks if it's done at all, and is actually joined by a whole host of other factors that start creeping in. Things like what competitors are doing, a need to adopt new technologies just for the sake of it, and company cultures set at the top, things around innovation and disrupting for the sake of disruption. Now, as we started off down the kind of example of a fridge, I've actually spent quite a bit of my own spare time digging into that particular model of smart fridge, looking into how some of these factors have led to that fridge being created. So as I've done that, and to not waste the research, we might as well continue down that path. So if we start with competitors, if you break down the landscape of the smart fridge market in the UK, there's 3 tiers. So premium tier, you've got Samsung, who made that fridge that you saw earlier. So they're the current market leader for smart fridges. They're joined by Bosch and LG. So these are like your John Lewis brands. They've all got really good smart fridges. They're all quite expensive. Mid-market, you've got Kenwood, Hotpoint, Siemens. This is more like Currys, those sorts of brands. They've all got smart fridges, bit cheaper, features aren't quite as good, but they still make the product. Budget end, Candy, Grundy, Beaker. So these are kind of like your Argos white goods brands. Probably comes as a set with a washing machine, something else. They currently don't offer smart fridges. So the point I'm trying to make here is that all these competitors are aware of what each other are doing, and they're basically all coming for Samsung as the market leader. And they're not messing about. It is a cutthroat world. So this is William Cho. Looks fairly harmless in this picture. He's the CEO of LG. And as part of my research, I noticed that in an address to shareholders in 2021, he said, smart appliances are the future. LG will become the leading smart home provider by 2025. So he's not messing about. He's setting his stall out. He's basically coming for Samsung. So Samsung have got all this going on in the background that they're worrying about. As for technology, so for this part of the puzzle, we need to wind the story back a few years, all the way to Cold Expo 2017, which took place in Düsseldorf, Germany. This is the trade show of refrigeration and freezing technologies. Decent day out if you're ever in the area. At this particular expo, a new piece of technology was launched for the first time, and that was temperature-resistant cameras, so cameras that can operate at extreme high or extreme low temperature. And I can confirm at the event, this was the talk of the show. 3 months after the show, the company that made the cameras was subject to a 3-way bidding war between Bosch, Samsung and LG. So all those top-tier providers, you can probably see where this is going. The winner of the bidding war was Samsung. So Samsung have now got a company on its hands that makes temperature-resistant cameras. So technology-wise, they've got to use that technology. Culture. So this is J.H. Han. Again, looks fairly harmless. He's the CEO of Samsung. Shortly after buying that company, in his address to shareholders, he said, he's going quite hard here, business is a matter of survival. The fittest survive and the weakest die. Innovation is our lifeblood, we must innovate. So he's basically saying we need to innovate at all costs. Christmas that year, Samsung brings out its first smart fridge. So all of this is quite a long-winded way of saying it's easy to take your eye off the ball when it comes to design and let other factors creep in and start influencing the design process. So what I wanted to do for the rest of the talk was talk a bit about how to avoid this. So if we go back to the method from the start about product design, the 4 stages, these can actually be broken down a little bit further into specific user-centered design activities. So 1 and 2, just defining a problem, understanding that problem. That's basically a bit of upfront user research. Solving the problem, that's essentially some sort of ideation, concept creation. And then checking you solved the problem, so some sort of concept or user testing. It's probably quite easy to look at this and think, well, user research, concept creation, that's going to cost a lot of money, it's going to take quite a lot of time, we don't have those skills in-house, we're going to have to get an agency in, like LION+MASON, to do that. But what I wanted to do with this part of the talk is just run through some quick, simple, effective methods that anyone could do, regardless of your background in this particular area, for each of those activities that will enable people to, in the early stages of projects, nip any daft ideas in the bud, like the smart fridge. So I'm just going to go through them. So it's essentially a streamlined product design process. So across the top, you've got those activities. So user research, there's 2 parts to this really. The first bit is understanding who your users are. If you've got some vague idea of a concept, it's got to be aimed at someone. If you get into this, customer segmentation, it's quite easy to get tangled up in detail. So you can start looking at segmentation models where customer criteria are broken down by things like demographics, geography, psychographics, behavioural. You can then start isolating particular criteria that your users might have. You can flesh those out into fully fledged personas with things like personality traits, brand affiliations. Once you've got a number of different personas, you can then start mapping those based on customer value into various matrices. And then you can chart how those customers might change over time. But things can get quite complicated quite quickly, and the danger with getting into all this is you don't end up actually doing anything. You think, oh, we'll put that off, or we'll do it next year. So similar to what Kelly mentioned about smart personas, we actually use personas a lot, but they don't have to be that complicated. So what we tend to do is 3 things. What's the scenario that someone's in? What makes that person's life hard? And what makes that person's life easy in that scenario? So this example here, I think, is from a project about finance. So it's a young person wanting to spend less and save more, maybe quite a lot of people in this room. Age 18 to 30, financially independent. Makes that person's life easy would be, tell me when a better interest rate is available. I don't want to be scrolling through rate tables manually. Give me short explanations. I don't want to be having to read loads and loads of text. What makes that person's life hard would be long-winded application forms and not being able to do things on a phone. Right. And that's it. Whacking a picture, you've kind of got a smart persona there. Do a couple more, and you've got a user base that you can actually go and target and speak to. What we tend to do at this point, and what's normally a good idea, is to try and identify the person that's going to either struggle most with the technology or struggle most with the content. So they almost become then the sort of design baseline. So whatever you design, whatever content you write, has to work for that person, and they need to be properly represented in the research. It's quite often easy to miss those people. So that's it. So once you've found those people, how do you actually get insight out of them? So there's a few different options. These are some fairly common ones: focus groups, interviews, surveys. I'll discount surveys at this point just because the format's quite inflexible. Once you put it out there, that's it. There's no chance for probing, extra questions, things like that. It's also quite hard to actually vet the people that complete them. If you're targeting specific people, surveys, you're kind of at the mercy of who responds. It's not always the best people. So between focus groups and interviews then, just run through a few quick examples. So let's say we've got a focus group, 5 people in a room, plus a facilitator. You're there to discuss an issue that you want to talk about. The point I'm trying to make here is that with focus groups, you really are at the mercy of the personalities in that room and how they react on that particular day. There's quite a lot of risk involved. So let's say person 1 and 2 are alpha male type personas. Person 3, 4 and 5 are a bit more laid back, hence the hairstyles. So person 1, straight out the traps, I'm important, people value what I have to say, I'm going to talk until someone stops me. There's normally someone like that in the group who will just chat and chat and chat, and it's up to the facilitator to lock them down. Things can get quite funny if you've got someone else like that in the group. He's talking a lot, I'm also important, I'm going to start talking to stop him from dominating the room. So those two are going at it. Already you're kind of drifting off topic. Person 3, these two seem like complete idiots. I'm going to say something controversial to wind them up. Already the group's drifting away. Person 4, my boss told me to come to this, I get the day off work, it's not worth me getting involved. He's disengaged. Person 5, I can't believe I get paid for doing this, I don't have to speak. The facilitator's ready to go home. So what you've got is not some sort of aggregate insight based on everyone in the room and all that hard work about personas. You've just got some personalities reacting and getting annoyed with each other. There's quite a lot of risk early stages of a project to base decisions on that type of insight. As an alternative, you can use interviews, so a little bit more time consuming, but companies do use that sometimes, I guess. Samsung may have done that, I don't know. In terms of interviews, a bit more time consuming to arrange and probably more expensive because you've got to do them one-on-one. But if we just play out an interview scenario, just as an example. So this is from, it's anonymised, but it's from a project looking at healthcare, fitness and health, and about people's attitudes about going to gyms. So this is the facilitator in grey. Do you go to the gym? Yes. How often do you go? 3 times a week. So if that was a focus group or maybe a survey, it'd probably be the end of conversation there because you wouldn't have a chance to explain anymore. But something about the way that guy gave that last answer, I don't quite believe him for whatever reasons. A look in his eye, he didn't quite sound like he was convincing, so I'm going to probe further because I can, because this is an interview. When do you go? Monday, Wednesday and Friday. All right, it's Wednesday today, you're going tonight. I'll struggle tonight, I've got errands to run. That's quite vague. Okay, but you're going on Friday. Not this Friday, I'm out this Friday. All right, but you're going extra days next week to make up for it. No. So all we know really about this person now is that it sounds like they might have a gym membership, but they're not that committed to going to the gym. And all that extra insight we've been able to extract through this method of doing it as an interview, as opposed to doing it as a focus group or doing it as a survey. So I'd always value doing interviews if you can, early stages in a project. And in terms of doing them, they don't have to be really long and formal and expensive, just a quick checklist. So if you're using personas, it's usually good just to do five people per persona, just because you get a decent spread. Have a script and talking points, so you're doing the same thing with everyone, so it's repeated. And then just document the insights. So what you want out of this is quantifiable insights that you can make decisions on, not sound bites or half-remembered conversations that someone said something, I think. It needs to be kind of documented. Just some examples. So there's some talking points. This was around travel and holidays. And there's some insights. The key thing is the insights have been quantified. So as an example, talking point 3, what frustrates you about booking a holiday? That's effectively you fishing for a problem there. And if what comes back is actually only 1 out of 15 people experience the frustration, that's probably not a problem that's at a level where you'd actually pursue it. And you can tell that just from doing 15 users. So that's that bit. So work out who your users are, speak to them one-to-one, and then have a system to record the feedback. The next bit then, so ideation, concept creation. So let's say you've uncovered some sort of problem in the user research. You've developed some sort of idea to solve the problem. What do you do with that? How do you bring it to life? How do you get feedback on it? The easiest thing is probably just to write it down, explain it to someone and see how they react. But again, there's quite a lot of risk in that approach. So you're trusting that person to take your idea as words, convert it in their own head to some sort of visual concept that matches your version of the idea. The chances of one person doing that and coming up with the same concept that you've got in your head are quite low. The chances of multiple people doing that and all coming up with the same concept from your description are slim to none. So what I'd always suggest is just jump straight to the concept, something visual that people can see. It's fairly, it sounds like common sense, but it's amazing how often you see it missed. And it doesn't have to be anything particularly flashy. It can literally be blocks of content on a page that are labelled wireframe style. I think this is the bit that we see quite a lot where companies that maybe don't have in-house design expertise see this as a bit of a blocker, so they can do the user research bit themselves. They can probably do the concept testing once they've got the concept, but creating a concept, bringing it to life is the difficult bit. And again, this just, well, for me, this just doesn't happen in a moment of inspiration where you sit down and suddenly, this gets created. There is a method you can use. So as a starter, what I always try to do is get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, 2 columns. One is someone who's using this, what do they need to see? So what content needs to be there? So, and then what do people need to be able to do? So what functionality, effectively? And then just start listing them. So I think this is looking at, hotels and travel. So, for example, I want to see ratings by customers and official ratings for a hotel. I want to see a seasonal price range for a hotel, and I want to see price breakdowns of extras, so like drinks packages, things like that. What I want to be able to do, select hotels and compare them against each other would be an example. Opt in and opt out of certain packages and see the prices update. So again, you can just list them out, fill out the lists, colour code them, and then you can almost start grouping content together that seems to fit together. So content and functionality that seems to be linked, just group it, and then it almost starts kind of building itself. So this has separated itself out into, say, like 3 key pages, and it's a case of just drawing in the items that you've already listed. So in this example, we'll just take the first page. So you've got a container, title. If this is a hotel, you might have a card with a picture of the hotel on it, and then it's a case of literally just drawing in the items. So some star ratings, some customer ratings, a block for prices, 3 blocks for additional prices, a button to select hotels, and then an opt-out, opt-in checkbox. That's pretty much it. Add in a few more, and you've basically got a listings page there. And that would be good enough that you could actually go away and test at a basic level early on in a project. Do the rest for the other pages, and you've sort of got a prototype then. But yeah, you could go away and test. In terms of actually testing the concept, fairly straightforward. So 3 key points, I always think. The first one, ask focused tasks or questions. So that's a word cloud. You sometimes see feedback from user testing or user research presented like this. It's quite interesting, it's quite good for having a conversation around, but if you're looking to make tangible decisions and invest money in products, this is actually quite flimsy. You want something a bit more rigorous than this. So what we tend to do, if you just ask focused tasks or questions, so show someone a concept, ask them to find specific things, ask them to do specific things, ask everyone to do the same questions or tasks, and you can start to build up quite a powerful set of data that you can quantify that's more than just some words. Watch what users are doing. I'll explain the picture in a second, but there's quite a few user testing platforms now that allow you to put a concept out there, create a series of tasks, and then ask users to complete it, and they come back 20 minutes later or 2 days later, and you've got a load of feedback to review. And it relies on often people self-assessing. So how easy did you find this? How valuable did you find the information? Were you able to understand the content? That's fine, but this is where the pitch comes in. People tend to overestimate their own ability on certain things. I think there's a survey where 80% of people think they're above average in terms of driving safety. So obviously those numbers don't add up. So the key to this is ideally watch each session yourself, either live or in person, so you can see where people struggle. If they do struggle, you can ask questions, you can chip in, and you can get that extra context that you don't get from remote, unfacilitated testing sessions. So I said live or in person. You just use Zoom for this mainly. Get someone to screen share, record the session and just watch what they're doing. Not done any in-person user testing for ages, and I've not actually seen any downside to it personally. And lastly, capture systematic feedback. So this naturally just follows from points 1 and 2 really. So if you're asking focused tasks and questions, if you're watching what users are doing, it's just a case of recording your observations in a systematic way. That allows you to pull out commonalities, trends, inconsistencies, and aggregate it over a lot of users. That actually becomes quite powerful data. So you can either shut down or support certain points of view on projects, certain features. That's pretty much it. You've a lot more, God, that's what that's out, isn't it? A lot more powerful than a word cloud, a badly formatted word cloud. And that's pretty much it. You've completed the game. So just to finish, can you achieve guaranteed certainty? So I think what anyone in the world of product design, product creation wants is guaranteed certainty that they're going to put a product out there. People are going to like it, and they're going to like it enough to buy it, and they want that guaranteed certainty before they launch it. I don't really know any way of doing that. But at least going through some sort of systematic, methodical process like this will avoid you nipping any will help you to nip any really daft ideas, filter out any bad ideas, like the smart fridge in the product design process early on. So try and avoid being the next smart fridge of whatever area you work in. And that's it.